Alright, well, hello everybody. I've been working on this proposed video series for a couple months now, doing quite a lot of research and trying to remember things so that I can get everything in the right order throughout my life. What I want to do is basically disabuse everyone of the notion that I only like Rush, or I don't know anything other than Rush. And so I thought I'd do a retrospective look at my entire life of music, musical influences, how I grew up, what I was exposed to, what I listened to, what I noticed, my history of playing, and everything that goes along with the total immersion into music that I have been since I was literally 2 or 3 years old. I've always loved music. I've always been around music. It's always been around me. Everyone in our family plays instruments, and so I'd like to go through my evolution of a musical fan, and then later as a player of music, and the growing appreciation I have for why I liked stuff when I was younger. I wasn't evolved or I wasn't aware of why it was good, but looking back, I can now find, oh yeah, I know why I like that, or I know why that's good. And after studying it for so many years, pretty intensely, now I can even get into the physics of it and the time and the way it flows and the different relationships between different intervals and all of the theory behind it. And whereas when I was young, I just listened to it and I said, I like that or I don't like that. So I'm going to try and concentrate on drumming in the music, but I also have a great deal of appreciation for music in general that I have to get out of the way before I can talk about the drumming, because it has a direct influence on why I like drumming and drummers and drums and the whole rhythm of music. So, with that out of the way, let's start in the early years. So, my parents had me when they were not old, but quite a bit older than a lot of my friends who are my age. Parents had them because my parents both went to university, and they it was unusual in the 60s to have both parents go to university, A, and B, have kids later in life. Usually people got married, they got a blue-collar job, and they, popped out a couple kids, 2 or 3 kids, when they were in their early 20s. So consequently, by the time I was born and aware of things, my parents were in their 30s, and they were also from England, not from Canada. And so the music that they listened to was of a different generation than a lot of my friends' parents. They grew up on the Beatles and the Stones and the sort of just before the baby boomers generation. And so I didn't get any of that early in life, because my parents listened to classical music, and they also both played the piano. And so our house was, we were 2, 3 years old. We didn't have a choice on what we wanted to listen to. We didn't have any music of our own stereo or anything like that. So we were exposed to Rossini and Tchaikovsky and Mozart and Haydn and Beethoven and Bach and Stravinsky and Schubert and on and on and on. And we also were forced, and I use that term very sort of tongue-in-cheek, because at first we ran kicking and screaming from the car when we were forced to go to the symphony, but after a few goes we sort of got into it. We being me and my sister's a couple of 2 years older than I am, but we got all this incredible exposure to great music. I'm talking really great music, 300-400-year-old tested music, and along with the season tickets to the symphony orchestra in the local city, we also had a light opera sort of musical stage production thing. So we got to see all the Sound of Music and all these Rodgers and Hammerstein plays, and Porgy and Bess and all these. And again, we didn't understand because we were 5, 6, 7 years old, but it was enjoyable to watch that stuff. There was dancing, there was singing, everyone was happy. And to me, music is a celebration, always a celebration. Even if you're listening to some maudlin love song, it's still a celebration of what was good. And the whole idea of loss is that you're remembering something that was good. You don't feel loss over something that was bad. So that's just a side note. But to me, so music is always a celebration. And even as little kids, we realized that. That's about all we realized, really. And then we got introduced to the Canadian brass, which is a 5-piece brass, a couple of trumpets, a tuba, a trombone, and a French horn. And I was immediately just blown away by the trombone, because the glissando and things like that you can do because of the physics of the instrument itself. And then the valve instruments, they can do, they can play in between when the valve is half open or half closed, or and the French horn, the guy's got his hand in there, and it's in a different times, in a different staff, and you have to transpose it all, and all that stuff we were aware of, even though we were just young kids. And so going to see that was a real joy too. And so that was my earliest influence. And of course, as I mentioned, both my parents played the piano, so we constantly heard music in the house. They were always playing the piano. And up until I was 10, we only had one piano. Now, that sounds funny, but my parents bought a second piano, a grand piano. It's a baby grand, of course. We don't have the room for a grand piano or the money to buy one. But so they turned them so they were kind of keyboard here and a keyboard here, and my parents began playing 2 piano music. So that was really cool, because then I could actually see the mingling of 2 musicians at the same time, and how they played off each other. And I learned arrangements and concertos and what the difference between a symphony and an orchestra and things like that. Early theory that I didn't really understand fully, but it kept going in by osmosis.